Hey everyone, so today we are going to learn all about color pulling. I'm sure you've seen lots of different videos with different explanations and tutorials on exactly how to do this. And I have watched probably close to 20 different videos trying to figure out what the magic is behind color pulling. And I also tested out several different types of yarn to achieve this argyle look. So my goal today is to get you from having no clue how to take this type of a yarn and turn it into this beautiful argyle style. So I would encourage you to watch the whole video before you attempt to do anything. So just kind of settle in, get yourself a warm beverage, get comfortable, and let's learn all about color pulling. So to begin, I used several different red heart yarns. And this sample right here, this is a papaya color that is in the red heart pulling line. It's an engineered yarn that's specifically designed for color pulling, and it uses 6 different colors. And it's what gives this really vibrant, lively color kind of argyle pattern that we have here. Now, for somebody who has never done color pulling, I highly recommend starting out on this yarn. I think it leaves less room for mistakes, and once you get going, it's a lot easier to work with. And if you want to know what that yarn looks like, it's just the Super Saver Pulling by Red Heart. And then I also worked up another swatch in just a traditional Super Saver yarn that just had a variegation in it in this kind of black, white, and icy gray. And I'm going to go over, if you notice here, like this diamond here looks obviously bigger than this one, and this one looks smaller than this one. This is normal. The closer you are to it, the odder it looks, but obviously the farther away you get, the more, I guess, uniform it looks, almost kind of like an optical illusion. So this is just a Super Saver that has color changes in it. And then lastly, on my next swatch, I just did a Red Heart with Love yarn in this really pretty yellow, white, and it kind of has like 3 tones of taupe in there. And I did it here. And again, you'll notice that the little diamonds are a little bit different in size as we move up. And then right here, you can see that we lost the diamonds altogether. And so we're going to talk about this right here and how this happened and how to avoid it and everything like that. So to get started, when you're choosing yarn, if you opt to not choose the color pulling yarn, you're going to notice that you have kind of an idea of how long your color changes are. So this is obviously a lot more loose, but here we have 2.5 to 3 little groupings of yarn, and that tells us approximately how long our color changes are. So if every single one of these colors, so if you had the white, the yellow, the kind of darker tone of the beige, and then the beige itself, if all of those colors all had 3 strands, so any of the yarns that are like stripes, or Red Heart also has a Fair Isle yarn, or any other variegated yarns that have longer stretches of a color, those are not going to work for this. You're never going to get that argyle pattern. And this one was definitely pushing it because your white strand obviously is a little bit longer. So you have to be really cautious about how many stitches that you're getting and doing there. So like I said, if you've never done this before, I would highly recommend just going with the pulling yarn to test this out, because it's going to be a lot easier to kind of get a feel for how things work up. Another thing that I want to mention is when you're looking at this, let's get a different one because this one's kind of, like I said, a little more difficult. As you're looking at this, you're going to notice that in the moss stitch, which is what the stitch you have to use in order to achieve this argyle look. In the moss stitch, just about every color has 3 little V's. Obviously the black is a little harder to see, but you've got your 3 whites right here, and then you've got 3 grays, and as you come up, it's kind of this little chain 2 at the end counts as one. So you've got 1, 2, 3 right there, and then we're transitioning from the silver into the white again. So you've got just about 3 stitches per color. Now in some of the other videos they mentioned like you need to have several hooks on hand. I did not find that to be the case. As long as I was making it my goal to have right at about 2.5 to 3 stitches per color, I was fine doing this. The other thing that you have to really pay close attention to is, are your colors shifting? Now when I'm saying shifting, let me get this swatch where it happened. So right here in this color, you notice that the yellows are coming at a diagonal, the whites are moving at a diagonal. These are obviously transitioning and moving back and forth. There's shifting happening. And in this one you can see the whites are shifting this way, they're shifting this way, and the blacks are going from being pulled together to shifting out and vice versa. But here, as you can see, all of a sudden when we got to this row, our colors stopped shifting, and instead of shifting, they started stacking on top of each other. And while that's a pretty look, that's not what we're going for. So as you're working along, 2 things that you need to be mindful of. 1, are you getting right at about 3 stitches per color? And 2, are your colors moving? Are they constantly shifting? And we're going to talk about how to start off making sure that everything is shifting. But those are the 2 main things to look out for. And you can easily adjust yourself. Tension is talked about quite a bit in these videos, and yes, tension is important, but I think in some ways it was overemphasized, and that can cause like stress when trying to attempt this. If you just focus on getting 3, like let's say I'm crocheting along and see this too, how it's like partially white and partially yellow, that's going to happen in your color changes as well. But let me pull in this bright one right here. So if you can just make sure that you're always kind of seeing 3 colors as you're shifting out, you're going to be able to naturally adjust your tension. So right here, if we had gone 4 green and then 2 blue, I would have said, okay, I'm too loose right here. So I'd back up a couple of stitches and rework this until I got just 3 green and just 3 blue. So pay attention to how many little V's you're getting per color, and that's going to help you easily adjust your tension. Another thing that you're going to notice is you've got this like long weird tail, and that's normal. What you're trying to do is you're trying to make sure that you're getting the correct color pattern as you're working this up, and this is dealt with at the very end of the project. So don't let that weird you out or anything like that. So again, this is the engineered color pulling yarn, and I do recommend starting out on this. This has 6 color changes in it, but there is a color pulling yarn that has less. So this is the one that we're going to do today's tutorial on, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, like right at about 4 colors in this one. So if you want to maybe not have to have so much to focus on with 5 to 6 color changes, maybe choose the pulling yarn that has less color changes in it, just so you can get an idea of how it works. When you go to choose your yarn, you may not find one that you like. And so if you opt to not grab the pulling yarn and instead want to get another variegated yarn, that's totally fine. This is what you're going to need to pay attention to. So as we're looking here, we don't really count the first color because we're not really sure exactly how much of that one we're going to need. So what we want to do is we want to look and say, okay, is this color right here, is this about 10 inches long? You want each color change to be approximately 10 to 12 inches long. 12 is honestly pushing it because you have a tendency to get 4 stitches, bouncing between 3 and 4 stitches in your moss stitch, and that's not what you want. You really want to just have 3. So between 10, lean on the 10 side, 10 inches long. 10 to 12 inches for each color change, and you just want to kind of make sure that all of them are like pretty close to the same. So as you can see, if we take this gray and this blue, we can measure and we can see that, yeah, they're right about the same length. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you're like, all of these pooling yarns, I don't like them, I want to choose my own variegated, just make sure you stay between that sweet spot of 10 to 12 inches max. Do not exceed 12 inches because it's not going to work. And then you can start testing out your pulling. Now I'm going to tell you, you're going to have to pull your yarn out probably a few times. I think after watching all the videos, I wound up pulling out at least 10 times before I finally got it. So the reason I'm even creating this video is one, for the pulling class that I have created through my website, which you can click down below and get that if you want it. But also too, I was just trying to explain it in a way that made sense to me after watching all of the videos. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. We're just gonna dive in. Again, don't try to do this with me at first. Just watch what I'm doing and try to internalize the information. And then maybe after watching once or even twice, then try it yourself, because I don't want you to get frustrated like I did. Okay, so the hook size that I have found to work the best is a 5mm or an H hook if you have an older hook that doesn't have the metrics on it. So a 5mm or an H hook. Now, we talked about tension. We talked about making sure that we're getting approximately 2.5 to 3 little V's per color. If you are finding that no matter how you adjust your tension, you're still not getting it, I would recommend going down just one hook below or one hook above. So if you are a much tighter crocheter, I would recommend going up to a 5.25mm hook. Or if you crochet more loosely, go down to a 4.75mm crochet hook. So just a little bit of a difference. Don't go like a whole half size. That's not gonna work. I think it's gonna be way too much. So the first thing that we need to do is obviously we need to create a foundation chain that works through our color changes. So it looks like we've got gray, blue, white, gray, red, white. That is our color repeat. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 colors in our whole repeat. So we're just going to just chain our way through the color changes. And again, it was mentioned in some videos, like it doesn't really matter where you put this. It actually does. You want to try to put it right at the color change or pretty close to it. So just get as close to that color change as you can and then begin that foundation chain. And again, we're not counting here. This is all about the color rotation. We're not needing to chain up 21 or 33 or whatever. We're just chaining our way through the color change. So if you have less colors in your yarn you're using, obviously you're going to have less chains in your foundation. So just chain your way through the colors until you get back to the beginning. Okay, so here it is. It's gray, blue, white, gray, red, white. And so what you want to do is you want to make sure that you chain up just one loop of the next color. So we've got a gray on our loop because that's the beginning of this. So in the 4th chain from the hook, we're going to do the moss stitch. And remember I said the moss stitch is the only one that you can really do for the color pulling where it looks, like an argyle. So in the 4th chain from the hook, remember you never ever count this one on your hook as a chain. We're talking about these down here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. In the 4th chain from the hook, you're going to work a single crochet, a chain 1, skip 1, another single crochet. And so what we're doing now is we are doing the moss stitch through the colorway. And this is where you're going to have leftover chain because it takes more yarn to do the moss stitch than it does to create the foundation chain. So we're just working our way back through the colors again. And this is how we're going to set up our project. Okay, so what we have right here is we have these three in the white. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull out that chain, the chain one and the single crochet that we did. And now we're going to turn. Make sure you've chained up 2 before you turn. And then you're going to work a single crochet right into that chain 1 space of the previous row. And then just do your chain 1, single crochet into the chain 1 space of the previous row. And just make sure you kind of keep that pattern, maintaining 3 single crochet per color as you're moving along, adjusting your tension by seeing how much you have left over in a stretch of color. And you're going to notice like you have some of these hybrid stitches where it's like half white, half gray. That's normal. That's going to happen because you have these color changes taking place. So that's absolutely normal. Keep moving along. And we're looking at row 3, and don't forget to go right there in that space where we did our first single crochet in the chain 4. Don't forget to do that. Chain 2 at the end and turn. Okay, so we've got a gray, and this is where we've got to be careful that our colors don't stack on top of one another like what happened here in this swatch. This swatch, we started having colors stacking rather than being diagonal from one another. So you just need to be really, really mindful of that. So we're gonna put a gray here, a gray here, and a gray here. So our colors stacked, and that's not what we want. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna back out a little bit, and we're gonna come down to this one, and we're gonna make sure that we pull everything tight. And hopefully what we should have is 2 grays, and there's our blue. So all I did, we can see that our gray is shifting this way. So all I did was to adjust this, I did the gray here. So instead of pulling tighter, I just let things be a little more loose. I drew up a little bit higher of a loop, chained 1, making sure that's loose, and then inserted my hook, drew up a loop just to make sure that I got that blue one. So now the blue is offset from that one. So at first, because stuff was a little too tight, my grays stacked. So I knew that I needed to back out a gray because obviously we want them moving at a diagonal. So I made things just a little bit more loose so that I could ensure that I had an offset of the gray as opposed to grays stacking. And again, if you're paying attention to whether or not you're getting 3 stitches per color, as long as you're paying attention to that, you're going to be able to tighten up or loosen as you're moving along. And so again, our blues are offset, so we are totally fine to keep going. Our tension is good. We don't have too little or too extra of any of the colors. And so everything is looking fine. And again, our whites are offset, which is exactly what we want. We don't want stuff stacking on top of each other. So we know that our tension is totally fine. And again, our grays are offset. So now we're coming up on red, and our like base chain down here, it gave us 4. And that'll kind of fix itself as we work up a little higher. I know in the Marley Bird tutorial, she said to do your moss stitch around the foundation chain, which is completely fine if that's what you want to do. I didn't like how my stitches were sliding around. So here, our gray is offset. We ended with a gray here. So everything is looking fine as we're moving along. So we're going to put our blue. We did a chain up of 2. Now, I did things kind of loose here, and that might cause me problems. So I'm going to have to keep my eye on that just to make sure that I'm not doing stuff too loose and therefore causing an issue, which it looks like we might have some stacking here in a second, but we'll see what the outcome is. I think we're going to be fine. Yeah, we're okay. So keep moving along. And again, just be on the lookout for whether or not things are stacking up correctly. And you're going to notice too, when you have more than 3 colors that you're working with, for instance, let me pull out this one since this one's really colorful. It's going to take you a minute to see exactly how things should be looking. So here we see that the hot pink is our X, and it looks like the red is going to be our X, but I'm thinking I might need to pull out and make an adjustment here in the base, because a couple of these, like this blue has 4, and then 1, 2, 3, we've got 3 of the white, but then 1, 2, 3, 4 of the gray, and then I've got 4 red right there. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull back and see if I can't just get 3 going along my base right there. And one of the reasons why I'm even filming the mess ups is because I want you guys to see and notice this yourselves when you're working, that okay, something isn't right. Like my X should be looking like this in these big multicolored ones, and we're not getting that. So we want to make sure that we go back down here and we're just aiming for 3 little V's per color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull all that out, and we're going to start over again and make sure that we're just getting 3. So let me pull that out and I'll pop you back in so you can see how I work through getting just 3 on the base. So I backed everything out and I have my 3 gray. And so what we're going to do is we're going to try to make sure that we are getting just 3 blue. So it looks like our blue is longer on this one, so we're going to kind of make a more loose stitch. Because again, we just want 3. We don't want more than that. And let's see if that can't remedy the issue. Okay, so we've got 3 blue. Now we want 3 white. And our white looks kind of long, so I'm going to back that out and make a little bit looser stitches. The foundation is, if you can get any issues solved within the foundation, it'll be smooth sailing the rest of the way. Okay, so we've got 3 whites. These stitches are just a little bit loose, but once everything gets going, you won't even be able to tell. So there's our gray. We need 3 gray. So I'm just going to kind of do these more loose. I think I might be okay with that. Okay, 3 gray. And then 3 red. My red's kind of long, so Just gonna make these stitches a little more loose. All right, and then we're gonna do 2 white, because remember, we want to kind of offset. We've been doing 3 and we want the colors to shift. So we're gonna chain up 2 because we've worked through the color, and now we're gonna begin. So let's see, we're looking for gray. So there we go. And here, all right. So just 3 per color. There's 2. I think we'll have enough for 3. Oh, we've got a hybrid stitch, but that's okay. 1. See, now I need to tighten up my tension just a little bit because, yep, see, I didn't get fully 3. So let's tighten that up a little bit, just a little bit. Tighten it up, okay. So 1, 2. Do you see how the slightest adjustment in your tension is all you need? So now we've got 3, and we cut it a little close because obviously the white was trying to fade in on us, but that's okay. We need 3 white. Okay, perfect. 3 gray. Okay, and then 3 red. Just be paying attention, always aiming for 3. And then we'll have a white in the end. Make sure you chain up 2. Okay, so far things are looking good. All right, so we've got okay, so that's 2 because this chain 2 counts as 3, and this is already perfect. So we're going to be offsetting. There's our gray down below, and it's working out perfectly. Oop, I'm gonna have to pull that a little tighter. So you can see we've got the 3 gray right there, and 2 rows above our gray. Let me put it down. 2 rows above, so you've got V, V, V. You've got these V's. Just ignore that red one. I'll do this. Pretend like that red one's not there. The grays are offset. I'm gonna back this stitch out just a little bit and pull it a little tighter so that we don't have quite as much blue popping through. Okay, there we go. And then we're coming up on blues. So 2 rows below, here are our blues. We want our blues shifting that direction. And it looks like everything's working out perfectly. There's the blues, they're shifting. Coming up on white, we want a good, nice shift from the white. And we might have a little too much because I'm pulling tight because of that stitch back here that we had to pull tight on. So just a little bit more loose to make sure that we don't have too much white left over, which I think will be fine. Here's our gray. We're coming up on gray, and we want that shifting to the left. One more stitch, perfect. So our gray is shifting. Coming up on red, we want that to shift. Make sure you just kind of get to the left of that V. Okay, so far things are looking really good. We're getting some shifts happening, which is exactly what we want. Okay, so here's that white. We just did a chain 2. Now obviously we're going to want 1, 2 whites right there because the white will be shifting back to the left. So we've got quite a bit of white, so I might have to pull out and make a couple of adjustments because I think, oh, maybe not. No, that's perfect. So those stitches are obviously a little bit looser, but it's totally fine. So we're on gray again. So our first gray is starting there. So we're gonna have that perfect shift of the gray to the left, which is exactly what we need. And again, you're not looking at the row right below, you're looking at 2 rows down. So you have 1, 2, 3, and that one ended just slightly beyond. And then we're looking at blue, and obviously we want this one to be 1 shift over. The blue in this particular skein, it looks like they shortchanged it a little bit, because the blue is the one that I seem to constantly be having to pull tighter. So again, this is why kind of testing things out before you like dive full on into a project, just make sure like you understand exact, you know, links of different things, because like for me, for instance, I'm like, every time I come up to a blue, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to pull tighter here because the blues in this one aren't dyed quite as long as the other colors in the skein. And it seems like the whites are probably the longest color. Okay, so again, we want to see another shift. So let's see, we should have another shift happen. And there, oopsie. We need it to pop out. That stitch is a little loose. So let's go 1, 2. We're having to hold it a little bit tighter just to make sure. Okay. So our whites shifted. We shifted 1 more white. It was a little tight, but we got it. And then we need our grays to shift 1 more beyond. Okay, so perfect. So again, if we're looking at this row, there's our first blue, there's our last gray. So we shifted up 1. Okay, so here's our 3 blue. We want to land with our last blue right there so that we can see our blue is again continuing to shift, and we know that the blue is typically the shorter color. So we just want to make sure that we're pulling things tight so that we have enough, and we did. So you can see that blue is shifting because of where we just did the last stitch. And we're wanting our white to shift, which it will. There's our last white stitch, so we've still got 1 more to do. Oops. So perfect, it shifted perfectly this direction. And then still looking for those shifts. Oh, we got a little too much gray. So let's back out. Let's back out to this stitch, and we'll go just a bit more loose because the gray is a little longer on this one. Perfect. All right, perfect. So we're right at the red. So you notice I didn't change my hook size or anything like that. I just made those stitches just a tad bit loose, and it worked out perfectly. So you don't need to feel like you got to have 6 hooks on hand or something like that. Just back it out and just pull a little bit tighter. And as long as you're maintaining that 3 V's per color, you are going to be totally fine. Okay, so we're coming up on a white. And obviously we want things stacking nice and neat for us. Or not stacking, I said stacking. We want them moving, not stacking. Okay, and we're at the grays. Oh, and we're starting to see that argyle pattern happening, which is fun. just keep moving along. We're still getting 3 per stitch, which is exactly what we want. Everything is still shifting and still moving, which is again exactly what we want. Still moving. And so at this point, I think you're understanding the concept is 3 V's. And when I say V, I'm talking about this thing, which is just a stitch. It's just a single crochet, but I just say V because it looks like a V. But 3 V's per color, and you want movement from the colors. We don't want anything stacking on top. We don't want perfectly little, we don't want this. We don't want these vertical bars of color, of the same color. That's not what we're looking for. If that is happening, that is wrong. You need to back out what you're doing and start again. So this is kind of a long white, so I'm probably gonna have to be a little bit more loose in my stitches here. So it's just all about paying attention and being aware. And it's not paying attention because you need to count. It's paying attention because you got to make sure that you're getting those 3, which you don't technically need to count. You can just kind of glance and say 3, 3, 3. Okay, I'm getting 3. So yeah, you can already see we've got a much better, more defined movement of the colors than what we were getting before. So it looks like there might be an issue here, but it may clear up the farther I go along. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little bit more, and then I'm going to pop it back in the video and show you what's going on. Have I run into more issues or problems? Is everything working out okay? And we will go from there. Okay, so as you can see, I've worked up several more rows, and we're already starting to see that crisp, clean argyle pattern. So something about this that I want you to be aware of, when the project is closer to you, it's a little bit more hard to distinguish the designs. And I think that's one reason why, for anybody that's maybe tried this and not been successful, it looks just like a mishmash of colors. But once you pull it away and you start to really look at the pattern and almost kind of looking at it as it's moving, you can really kind of see the argyle in it. So that's something that I just want you to be aware of. And don't, unless you have got colors that are way off, like what was happening for me, like I was not seeing this kind of clear lines happening. And you'll notice here, like things got a little bit more cleaned up by about this row. Things started to straighten out a little bit. But even if you're looking in, let me pull out this yellow one. Even if you're, sorry, I bumped the camera. If you're looking here, not everything is totally perfect. These don't look exactly the same to one another. But you do still see the movement in the colors as we're looking at it. You can still see the movement of the argyle pattern as we're moving along, until obviously we had a problem and an issue where a stitch got off. And one of the reasons why I went this long is because when the issue happened and I saw it, I thought, oh, it actually happened right here. You can see these stitches got stacked on top of each other. But when I saw it, I thought, I'm just gonna work up a couple more rows so that I can show the viewers, or the students rather, exactly what you don't want to happen in color pulling. Obviously it happens like a little bit in here as things are shifting, but then it kind of bunches back up and spreads back out. So if you can just maintain the movement in the yarn, that is definitely what you're looking for. And in this swatch, this colorway, for each of my tests that I got, I tried to get a different colorway so that I could use the same strategy of 3 stitches per color and still try to achieve the argyle, because that was one thing that I wasn't hearing in some of the other videos. Was I was hearing like, you need to change your hook size, you need to be doing this, and it just sounded really overwhelming. But I got all these different colors, and all I did focus on was just getting 3 V's per color, and that is what kept things moving along. So in that one, in this one, maintaining 3 per color, and even in the black and white one, maintaining 3 per color, I was able to achieve the argyle stitch. And the way that you adjust, like I showed you just a little bit ago, if you're going along, and this got really wacky. If you're going along and, you know, your blue is short and you're like, oh man, I can only get 2, back up a couple of stitches and do those tighter so that you can have just enough to get yourself over. And then if you have a stretch where the color is a little bit longer, just go looser, because if you're looking at this, you can't tell where my loose stitches are or where my tight stitches are. My goal is just to get 3 per color, and things will naturally move along. Now, once you've got that once you got that going and things are moving along perfectly, we've still got this weird long tail. And don't let this freak you out. It's not anything scary. All you're going to do is you're just going to pull it out like this, and you're just going to undo it. That's literally all it is. And then it'll just be a long tail to weave in. So you just pull it out, kind of like in a backwards way. You're not going to be able to pull this and it's all going to come out. You're going to have to literally unbraid it because it's kind of braided in there. So just pull that out, and you're going to use just your tapestry needle to sew that back in there. Really simple, just an extra long tail. And then if you're making like an infinity scarf, because one of these skeins of the pulling yarn is enough to make an infinity scarf if you're using the 5mm hook. So you can use this long tail to actually seam the 2 ends together if you wanted to. Okay, so here we are at the end. It's our last stitch. And all we're going to do is we're just going to take these 2 ends, and it'll be a little bit more like a cowl, but we're going to take our crochet hook and we're just going to seam these 2 guys together. So just stick your hook there in the end, and then use that tail and just do a slip stitch through all the stitches all the way across. Keep doing that all the way to the end. And then once you're done, you have this nice, colorful argyle looking piece. Now, if you are a part of the color pulling class, which is just a simple email course that I have put together, this is video 2 of the class. In class 3 and class 4, I'm going to give you a few more tips on actual projects that you can make and give you some rough estimations of how much you're going to need to do a blanket in this style and even a beanie. They said it couldn't be done, but I am here to prove them wrong. I have a color pulling beanie that you're going to be able to do, and even a blanket. Again, it's rough estimates because each yarn is different, and if you have to go up or down in a hook size, that's going to affect things. but it's still going to give you a basic understanding of how to achieve other projects other than just the sample scarf project. So if you are interested in signing up for that class, all you need is a good email, and you can sign up for free down below. They come straight to your inbox. You don't have to search anywhere for anything or come back here or anything like that. It's all sent straight to you, so you can do it as quickly or as slowly as you want to do it. So it's just a good resource to have on hand to refer back to if you try color pulling and it doesn't work for you the first time around and you want to maybe try again later. You definitely can. So if you're interested in that, just head below in the description box and click the link, and it'll take you straight to the sign up page. And I hope that this did help you, that you do have a better understanding. And if my tutorial wasn't the one that helped you learn how to do color pulling, I hope that you are able to find one that does help you understand. But again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.